And we are live on the fourth hour of the show. Coming up in the next segment, we're going to play Why the Woke Establishment Hates Joker. The frothing outrage in response to this film still continues to dominate 4 or 5 days after it was released. So we're going to play that video, which I just put up on Infowars.com about an hour ago. Meanwhile, as I tweeted, all across America, the very same corporations that relentlessly virtue signal about how much they support minorities and LGBT domestically are groveling and cowering to China, one of the most abusive nations towards minorities and LGBT on the planet. They literally put Muslims in concentration camps. It's all a giant scam. We have to get lectured about how offensive we are. Meanwhile, China, the most abusive, one of the most abusive, at least, anti-human rights regimes on the planet, not only gets a free pass, but basically gets to conquer and take over America through the media, through the sports entertainment industry. And if you spent the last year arguing for big tech to censor people you don't like, you have no right to criticize China for censoring South Park or the NBA, because you're literally as bad as them. And that's literally what they've done. They've yanked all the NBA broadcasts off their networks. They've yanked all the South Park episodes off their networks. They've even gone into South Park forums and wiped them off the internet because South Park dared to make fun of China in the last episode, because this NBA coach dared to express support for pro-democracy protesters in Ukraine. And the reaction has been vehement, to say the least, from China. The reaction from corporate America has been to genuflect, bow down, grovel, and apologize, because their proclaimed wokeness is a complete scam. It's fairy dust. Headline out of Breitbart: NBA's woke warriors silent on human rights abuses in China. The National Basketball Association considers itself one of the most progressive organizations in America and is always ready to criticize President Donald Trump or other Americans who are members of the league think are not woke enough. But this weekend's apology to China, and they did apologize. There are stories claiming they didn't apologize and they're going to refuse to apologize. Yes, they did on 2 separate occasions over the weekend. Shows that the NBA is quick to attack Americans while turning a blind eye to China's serious human rights abuses. Over the weekend, the NBA rebuked Houston Rockets general manager Daryl Morey, who tweeted his support of the pro-democracy movement in Hong Kong, which, by the way, the administrative leader of Hong Kong has now basically said that they're about to send in the Chinese troops, so that's going to get very fruity in a heartbeat. The league apologized to the oppressive Chinese government for Morey's support of the democracy activists. But according to a recent report, Human Rights Watch, China is still one of the worst abusers of human rights in the world. In its 2018 report, the organization reported China has, quote, dramatically stepped up repression and systematic abuses against the 13 million Turkic Muslims, including Uyghurs and ethnic Kazakhs, in China's northwestern Xinjiang region. And of course, in China, in Hong Kong, they're now talking about shutting down the internet to shut down these protests. That is their go-to method. Every step of the way is censorship. And now, because big tech and corporate America has aligned itself with that agenda, they censor just as flagrantly as China does now. They're backing down in a heartbeat. China warns brands to accept communism, freedom of speech ridiculous. They put this out in their official Global Times Communist Party mouthpiece, warning global brands, that's corporate America, to make their members speak cautiously on Chinese political issues Monday in response to an ongoing controversy following an NBA executive lending support to pro-democracy protests in Hong Kong. Following condemnation from the Communist Party and its puppets in Chinese society, the NBA issued a statement condemning Morey. Yes, they did do that, despite the mainstream media in America today claiming they'd never apologized. They did on 2 separate occasions. But now, in an article published Monday titled, "Global Brands Better Stay Away from Politics," this is the Chinese government lecturing corporate America on controlling people's freedom of speech, what they're allowed to say, what they're not allowed to say, and they backed down in a heartbeat. The Global Times article warned Americans and international actors that Chinese authoritarian speech restrictions now apply worldwide, and any protests in the name of free speech are, quote, ridiculous. China says jump, corporate America says how high. The only people who didn't back down, of course, were the creators of South Park. But then we have corporations like Apple. Headline: Apple bows to China by censoring Taiwan flag emoji. In a recent update to its iOS, Apple's iPhone operating system, Apple removed the Taiwanese flag emoji from its keyboard for users in Hong Kong and Macau, China's two special administrative regions. Oh, the horror of somebody being able to send a Taiwanese flag emoji to their friend. We have to shut that down. Imagine how insecure you have to be to delete a flag of a country from an iOS update. Is that going to cause unrest? Or is the fact that, you know, troops are about to roll into Hong Kong, you've got riot police literally shooting people in the chest? Maybe that's more likely to cause unrest. Apple makes no mention of the change in its release notes for iOS 13.11. The company did not immediately reply to Quartz's inquiry about whether the Chinese government requested censorship of the Taiwanese flag. Taiwan is an independently run democracy so far. So Apple caved in. Tiffany caved in. Headline: Tiffany removes advert over Hong Kong controversy. Tiffany & Co. removed a tweet showing a woman covering one eye after Chinese consumers accused the jeweler of supporting the Hong Kong protesters. Of course, that one eye symbol is because they shot a woman in the eye early on in the protest. She lost her eye, so then that became a symbol of the movement. The photo posted on Monday showed Chinese model Sun Feifei wearing a Tiffany ring on her right hand as it covers her right eye. So it wasn't even deliberate, probably, and yet Tiffany & Co. backed down immediately. Guess who else backed down? Vans sneakers. China's just conquering everything at this point. They're all being steamrolled into submission, into apology. Vans faces Hong Kong boycott over sneaker design controversy, reports CNN. Skateboarding brand Vans is facing a boycott in Hong Kong after it removed a shoe, alluding to the city's anti-government protest from a sneaker design competition. So they had a competition for somebody to design a shoe, and then somebody put some characters on this shoe that looked vaguely like the Hong Kong protesters, and that had to go. It can't even be represented. Again, this is another form of deplatforming. Their likeness can't even be represented in corporate America, or indeed in this case in Hong Kong. The company's decision to withdraw the proposed design was met with outrage on social media, where users began uploading videos and photos of themselves throwing their Vans sneakers in the trash and setting them on fire. So they've backed down. Tiffany backed down. Apple backed down. The NBA backed down and apologized and groveled. The only people who haven't backed down to this conquering of corporate America by the Chinese are the creators of South Park. South Park creators offer sarcastic apology after China bans episode We Good Now China. The creators of South Park sarcastically acknowledged Monday the Chinese government's decision to ban clips, episodes, and online discussions. They deleted entire internet forums of the animated show after an episode critical of the country. The episode Banned in China, which was then banned in China, which originally aired last Wednesday, satirizes the entertainment and sports industry's willingness to abide by Chinese censors in order to corner its business market. And look what happened in the days, the week since that South Park episode has aired. Apple removing a Taiwanese flag, Tiffany and Company removing a tweet because it shows a woman covering one eye, Vans withdrawing sneakers from a design competition because they show a likeness of the Hong Kong protesters, and of course the NBA groveling and apologizing in an attempt to get its broadcasts back on Chinese television. China says jump, corporate America says how high. They censor people domestically, so why not kowtow? Why not cowardly genuflect to the communist Chinese authoritarians when they give them their orders? We'll be back. Don't go away. We are back live on the show, fourth hour, and we're going to go in the next segment to that new video which went up a couple of hours ago. Why the woke establishment hates the Joker movie, a key video for you to get out and share. For the time being, though, speculation about whether Hillary Clinton, yes, Hillary Clinton, will run for a third time as president continues to rage. And in fact, about 15 minutes ago, She responded to Donald Trump's tweet from earlier today. Of course, Trump said, quote, "I think that crooked Hillary Clinton should enter the race to try and steal it away from uber-left Elizabeth Warren. Only one condition, the crooked one must explain all of her high crimes and misdemeanors, including how and why she deleted 33,000 emails after getting C subpoena." Hillary Clinton responded to that on Twitter about 15 minutes ago, said, "Don't tempt me, do your job." And then the initial responses I'm reading to this are Trump supporters begging Hillary Clinton to run, just as Trump wants her to run. Meanwhile, Hillary jumps to third place on Predict It as rumors of 2020 run swirl. Is the Democratic field that weak and that pathetic that Hillary Clinton could actually have a chance of winning, having failed twice previously? She's now jumped to third place behind Elizabeth Warren and Joe Biden on Predict It. As rumors of her entering the race for a 2020 presidential run continue to build, Clinton is enjoying a bounce due to the fact that all the rest of them are even more pathetic than her. Because of scandals surrounding Biden's profiteering in Ukraine and claims Warren lied about being fired from a teaching job for being visibly pregnant, we now know that was almost certainly not the case. Yet another complete fabrication from her, just like her ancestry. The odds of Hillary becoming 2020 Democratic nominee amongst a poor field of candidates are also at the highest in months. You can see there on the graph from Predict It, basically going parabolic over the last day or so. Odds of Hillary Clinton as 2020 Democratic nominee. A Rasmussen poll has Trump and Hillary running neck and neck in a hypothetical rematch. And then, as we highlighted last week, she appeared on this Stephen Colbert show with her daughter, and she was asked if she would endorse any of the Democratic candidates. She said she refused to endorse any of them, fueling speculation she may yet enter the race. And then Steve Bannon went on Fox Business Network last week also and said Clinton was trying to find a way to wedge herself into the race. He said they think they have a weak field, and it's like in chess. They're prepared to sacrifice a rook to take down a king. They will throw Biden away to get to Trump and hope Elizabeth, or I think even Hillary Clinton or Bloomberg or some centrist comes in here. She is running, said Bannon. She's just trying to decide how to fit her way in. And now she literally tweeted, "At Donald Trump, don't tempt me." Could we have the absolute joy, the meme explosion of having Hillary Clinton, crooked Hillary, run for a third time and to fail as a third time presidential contender? It would be extremely hilarious, to say the least, and the memes would be off the charts. Meanwhile, in Hong Kong, we talked about all these giant corporations who, again, virtue signal all day about how woke they are, how much they pander to LGBT and minorities while literally groveling and begging to China, one of the biggest abusers of LGBT people and minorities on the planet. Now Chinese army ready to step in against rioters. Hong Kong's Carrie Lam warns for first time, following a renewed surge in protest, unrest and violence in the wake of the controversial mask ban, which basically had no effect. The militants are still out on the streets. Hong Kong leader Carrie Lam has for the first time issued public warning that the Chinese military could step in, saying this drastic step would only happen if it becomes so bad, expressing hope it won't come to that and the situation will resolve itself under local authorities. She noted that the 4-month-long raging protests were no longer a peaceful movement for democracy and urged outside critics to understand this. She's saying no options could be ruled out. We know now there are 3 times the amount of Chinese troops in Hong Kong as there were just a few months ago. They did that bait and switch where they had the rotation of troops when they were actually bringing thousands and thousands of more troops into the area. And then, of course, we had this story, which was up on Drudge yesterday. Hong Kong government considering internet ban to stop protests. That was the executive council of the local government, Ip Kwok Him, who said they wouldn't rule out an internet ban in the future. Reason that's important is because whenever there are mass riots or civil unrest in these areas of China where they have large minority populations who are being oppressed and literally put in concentration camps and re-education camps, their first response, the Chinese government authorities, is always to block, ban and censor the internet. And hey, if it's good enough for Apple and YouTube and Twitter and Facebook, why not? So that's what they always do to try and quell unrest. Whether that's going to work in Hong Kong, a far more technologically advanced region than somewhere like Tibet, where they normally do it, remains to be seen. But now they're talking about sending in the troops. Meanwhile, in Europe, Germany, Syrian migrant shouting Allah, plows truck into traffic, 9 injured. This is an absolute miracle that he plowed the truck into other cars and not people. It was in the city of Limburg. I guess because this attack happened last night, there weren't many pedestrians out walking around, so he just decided to plow it into a bunch of other cars, which probably in a roundabout way is for the better because nobody died. The Syrian migrant shouting in Arabic about Allah plowed a truck into traffic in the German city of Limburg, injuring 9 people. They're treating it as a terrorist attack. The suspect dragged the driver of a white Mercedes truck from his vehicle before accelerating into other cars at a traffic light. Witnesses said he said Allah several times, spoke Arabic. Now, of course, Angela Merkel opened Germany's borders to mass migration back in 2015. Around 1.5 to 2 million refugees, many of them from Syria, flooded into the country. Many of those refugees were subsequently involved in terrorist attacks. We also know that the Paris massacre culprits used fake passports posed as Syrian refugees to get into France. The deadlier 2016 truck attack, you probably remember that, at a Christmas market in Berlin, which killed 12 people and injured 56 others, was carried out by a failed Tunisian asylum seeker. And then last week, of course, we had another attack. It seemed that these ISIS-inspired terror attacks were starting to die down over the past year or so, but now we've had apparently 2 in the space of a week, because last week a knife man who had converted to Islam and had been radicalized by ISIS propaganda killed 4 people in a terrorist attack on a police station in Paris, France. Again, that was somebody who had converted to Islam about 18 months ago, once again proving that Islam is not a race, it's a belief system. So we seem to have an uptick in terrorist attacks occurring throughout Europe, and that's very bad news indeed. We're going to come back and talk about the Extinction rebellion, the streets of London and other major cities brought to a standstill, and what a top professor is saying about the true motivations behind these well-dressed, middle-class performing activists. This is the Alex Jones Show, live breaking news at Summit.News. Don't go away. We'll be back in 2 minutes. We're back live on the 4th hour of the show. Before I get into some final news stories talking about the Extinction Rebellion protest, once again blocking the streets of London, I want to tell you about the final days of the Black Friday sale. We have 50% off, double Patriot points and free shipping on a whole host of products, including bodies, the whole body support formula with the turmeric available right now for 50% off. 216 reviews on that one, 4.9 out of 5. You can't get much better than that. We have the Knockout Sleep Supplement, which is also 50% off as part of this deal. And we have the Turbo Force Energy Drink, Energy Metabolism Alertness. That is powerful, powerful stuff, available right now again for a whopping 50% off as part of the Black Friday special, available right now at InfoWarsStore.com. We're not funded by fat checks from George Soros. We're funded by you. Tell you who is funded by fat checks from George Soros. Groups like the Extinction Rebellion. Now, I was on their website earlier today, and they make a really strong point about emphasizing how transparent they are with their funding. You follow the links to exactly where their funding comes from, and they don't tell you. Basically a PowerPoint presentation without any information whatsoever about who these NGOs are that are backing this group. Obviously, it's going to be the usual suspects, but they didn't even put it on their website. They brought London to a standstill yesterday. They're bringing other cities to a standstill. Headline: Professor slams Extinction Rebellion as a carnival for middle classes who love to dress up as activists. In fact, there's a video in this article where Katie Hopkins, the British journalist, gets confronted by one of these Extinction Rebellion protesters, bombarding her with questions. As soon as she asks him one particular question, doesn't seem to be too keen on answering it. And it's a very simple question: where did you go to school? Because this protest group seems to be very privileged, very white, very middle class, doesn't really seem to be representing the interests of the poor. Of course, if we followed their advice, poor countries, third world countries, wouldn't be able to develop. They're already destroying their forests in many areas to grow palm oil. So it's just very interesting, the makeup of this crowd. Very privileged background. People have also noted this amazing coincidence whereby if you go on their Instagrams, they're always taking photos out of airplane windows. Isn't that interesting? They worship Greta Thunberg, the child actress who pals around with Arnold Schwarzenegger, who's got a garage full of muscle cars and tanks. She pals around with Leonardo DiCaprio, who takes private jets to collect environmental awards. She pals around with Prince Harry, who took 4 private jet trips in 11 days to save the planet. No, to go and visit Elton John and party in his mansion. These are the people behind this movement. Rich elitists at the top, privileged middle class posh boys in the middle, lecturing you on how to live your life while they're on literally like a dozen commercial airline trips or even private jet trips a year, taking selfies in airplanes and putting it on Instagram saying how much they care about the planet. Well, now, professor and sociologist Frank Ferendi has slammed the Extinction Rebellion climate change protests as a carnival for middle classes who love to dress up as activists, and that's what it is. This isn't a protest, this is a show and tell. This is just a huge virtue signaling exercise where they can put it on Instagram and make themselves feel warm and cozy about it and tell their friends about it, make themselves look better in front of their friends. Oh my God, look at me, I'm such a good person. I care so much about the planet. When I'm not using diesel generators to actually power all this. We had another video about that. The group has embarked on a 2-week campaign to bring 60 major world cities to a complete standstill. That's sure to win hearts and minds. Oh, by the way, they literally have given themselves the right to stop ambulances trying to get across some of these roads that they've blocked. And their leaders have given interviews saying, oh yeah, we'll have a chat with the person who's trying to get to their dying loved one to visit them for a last time. We'll have a chat with the emergency case in the ambulance who could die at any minute. Maybe we'll let them through, maybe we won't. And the police do absolutely nothing. They just sit there, stand there, in some cases frolic and dance with them. If anyone else did this, if this was the Countryside Alliance or a pro-Brexit march or whatever, who were literally blocking major roads and bridges in London, they'd all be arrested instantly. These guys get to do it all day. A few of them got arrested at the end of it. By the way, this guy here was there to save the Amazon rainforest. That's what that woman said. He was literally stopped in that moment from saving the Amazon rainforest because he was arrested. So this sociologist has written a really good op-ed about this, which you should go and read. By the way, they're very proud to display their PVC yoga mats in the middle of Westminster Bridge, probably not aware of the fact that PVC yoga mats are made literally from petroleum. Ferendi said, quote, the ease with which Extinction Rebellion has succeeded in occupying the moral high ground has little to do with the quality of their arguments and the strength of their case. In all but name, the political establishments of the Western world have given up the attempt to exercise moral authority. The elite no longer upholds the values of their ancestors and is all too aware of its loss of legitimacy. It no longer believes in itself and is evidently prepared to be flagellated by its environmentalist critics. In turn, Extinction Rebellion knows that when it instructs its posh friends to jump, their answer is likely to be how high. And this is the key point. A lot of people on the streets of London and elsewhere are, of course, really miffed and angry about the way this carnival of reaction has disrupted their life. In private conversations, they murmur and swear at these wastrels, but as long as the performers enjoy backing of the media, the cultural elites, a significant section of the political establishment, and of course the all-important celebrities, their voice can be safely ignored by the protesters. And that is the point. This is not an organic grassroots movement. What they're calling for is widely supported by the political establishment itself. And if you drill down deeper into who actually operates these groups, who owns the carbon trading systems that make vast profits from this, it's the usual suspects. George Soros, Rothschilds, Al Gore. They're all well invested. And these people are the useful idiots that are out on the front lines, making it very lucrative for them indeed. There was another video, or another photo, sorry, which I put at the end of this article, and it's literally 3 celebrities out of the UK proudly displaying Extinction Rebellion badges. 3 of them, all 3 of them, recently produced lucrative commercials for the Britain's biggest airport, Heathrow Airport, the one all the environmentalists are supposed to hate because they keep trying to expand it. And British Airways, the biggest commercial airliner in the country. Olivia Colman, Stephen Fry and Asim Chowdhury posing with Extinction Rebellion climate change badges. They're all for the cause, apart from when they're being paid like Fry was to front a commercial for Heathrow Airport, apart from when Coleman and Chowdhury appeared in a recent British Airways ad that plays before all flights. And I've seen it a million times because they play it before every flight sets off. They're literally being paid by the biggest airport in the country, the biggest airliner in the country, while claiming to be denizens and vocal proponents of climate change reduction activism. Absolutely incredible sheer hypocrisy, but it's par for the course, given who's at the top of this. People like Prince Harry, people like Leonardo DiCaprio, people like Arnold Schwarzenegger, who are even bigger hypocrites. Meanwhile, new peer-reviewed academic study finds diversity is not a strength. This is out of a Danish university. It's entitled Ethnic Diversity and Social Trust, a Narrative and Meta-Analytical Review. It's not put out by the Heritage Foundation. It's not put out by Breitbart.com. It's put out by Danish university academics who were seeking to answer whether continued immigration and corresponding growing ethnic diversity was having a positive impact on community cohesion. But the study found the opposite to be the case. Well, what a surprise. You have mass immigration, uncontrolled. Integration goes by the wayside. The study studied existing literature and also carried out a meta-analysis of 1,001 estimates from 87 studies. And the researchers concluded we find a statistically significant negative relationship between ethnic diversity and social trust across all studies. Not to say that you can't have some limited skilled immigration, but when you bombard a country, as we do in the case of the UK, with almost 300,000 immigrants every year into a tiny island country that has a total population of what, now about 70 million, and you don't integrate them, and many of them can't even speak the language, you're going to have big problems with social trust and social cohesion, and that's exactly what this study has found out. That's going to wrap it up for the show. Coming up next is War Room with Owen Schroyer. Breaking news at Infowars.com. Thanks for joining us, and we'll be back. Don't go away.